When I was 14 years old, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, and I had come to know what to expect concerning symptomology and how I would feel and what that meant and what I needed to do to help with different symptoms. I knew what kind of self care strategies I needed to implement. Later on, I learned that certain foods would irritate my stomach and would cause like flare ups. And so I knew what to avoid and what not to avoid. Now, that was for several years from ages 14 up until I had children. But after I had children, things started to shift and change because of the needs of my children. And so I needed to learn really how to practice self care in a sustainable way that was going to help me. For years, I kept my autoimmune condition in remission. And then I noticed that stress was having such a strong impact on me. And so, what I thought was that I was having multiple reactions to a variety of different things, and it was related to the diagnoses that I had. What I realized over time through research and through seeking people that I respected in the community of homeopaths and naturopathic work and other specialists, I realized what was going on was that my blood sugar was being impacted, and no one was more surprised than myself. Hey there, mamas. Welcome to the Mom Care Coach podcast. And I am your host, VictoriaMatea. I am a certified life and health coach, certified international counselor, and also a homeschooling autism mom and former autism clinic director. I know that you are struggling with holding healthy boundaries around time management, constantly getting less than adequate sleep, and managing deep exhaustion and overwhelm. And you are praying to find a way to have more energy throughout your day. Well, friend, you have come to the right place. In this show, we will talk about how you can guide yourself through a process of self-care strategies that will lead you to the health solutions that you as an autism mom have been searching for, and how providing for your 4 intentional needs, sleep, movement, nutrition, and mindset, can help you avoid burnout. So grab this morning's leftover matcha or pour another cup of your homemade kombucha and pull up a chair, and let's have a chat on how these health solutions can change your life. One more thing. Would you like to know more about the online coaching services and health bundles that I offer? If so, please do not hesitate to reach out. My email is mindfulwellnessforautismmoms@gmail.com. Again, mindfulwellnessforautismmoms@gmail.com. And of course, it's also listed in the show notes. Thank you, and I look forward to hearing from you. Now on with our show. Hello everyone, it is VictoriaMatea here today. I hope that you are doing well, and if this is your first time joining us, thank you so much. You are welcome, and I'm so happy that you were able to tune in today. This is the Mom Care Coach podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today we are on episode 14, and just to let you know, episode 13 is actually on my YouTube channel. The reason why, it is all about my top 2 favorite tips for breath work. So it is on my YouTube channel, and it is called the Mom Care Coach, and it is a video that I am leading you through so that you are able to see me and go right along with the video with me and act out the breathwork session in real time. So that is a real treat. I hope that you're able to check it out over there and let me know what you think. You can always find me on the Mom Care Coach Facebook group, or you can leave comments right under the YouTube video, or of course you can leave comments right here. You can message me, you can email me. I am able to be contacted if you would like to know more about what is going on in my life. Also, I do one-on-one coaching as well as having an online health shop so that I am able to help you with a variety of different needs. So, first thing, I would like to read one of our reviews, which is so fun. So please, if you would like for me to have an opportunity to read a review online or in real time on this podcast, I'd love to. You just need to go ahead and leave a 5-star review, and I'm always checking, and I'm happy to read yours online or on the podcast as well. Okay, so today the review is by Tuttle 1973, and she says, as a mom who raised a son who is on the spectrum, I know firsthand how needed this podcast is. Thank you for showing up for this work. Mothers of children with autism need information and support. May God bless your work. Thank you so much. Turtle 1973. Okay, so today's one big idea. So first, let me tell you what the title is. So this is a very interesting episode. The title is My Top 5 Red Flags of Blood Sugar Imbalance. So of course, first I want to let you know that if this is the first time you are meeting me, my name is VictoriaMatea, and I am a mom. I have 2 children. One of them is diagnosed on the autism spectrum. Both of my children have special needs, and I am not a doctor or nurse. I am a certified life and health coach and mom and researcher. And so I am taking this information from my own firsthand experience. I am also taking this information as a certified health and wellness coach. I have been trained to be able to see and identify these different markers. Okay, so I want to talk about what our one big idea is. Our one big idea is that when our body is going through changes, we do not want to ignore. Even as we are getting older, it is normal to have, different changes or fluctuations in our body. But when they are consistent and it is making your body feel uncomfortable, we do not want to ignore about or concerning what could be actually happening. We want to be able to pay attention so that we don't miss something that's really important that our body is trying to tell us about. So when I was 14 years old, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, and I don't really go into titles about different things, so it doesn't really matter what the autoimmune condition is. But what I do want you to understand is that for me, because I had this condition, I knew what the symptoms were. For me, it had to do with inflammation. It had to do with a lot of different issues and pain and different things happening. And so it was a long time ago when I was 14. I am now 48. So I had known how I was feeling over the years. There were different things that my parents would help me to do. So I started practicing self-care a long time ago. For me, I remember, I don't know if you are aware of this or remember this when you were younger, but I had a waterbed. It's probably not really a thing now, but it was a waterbed, and it was one of those beds that you actually would fill up with water and it would move, and you kind of felt really buoyant and you could kind of bounce and everything. But because of the diagnoses that I had, it helped me to get sleep, and it was very comforting, and I loved that waterbed. But that was just one of the things that I was doing to practice self-care. We had a hot tub at home, and I would go in the hot tub every day. We also had a pool, and I would go swimming. And there were a ton of different things that my parents would help me to do for my own self-care, lots of different exercises, just different things to help my body with mobility. And I did that throughout, all of my years before I had kiddos as well. I traveled the world. I've been to over 30 different countries. So all of these little tiny self-care practices that I had in my life was really, really helpful. And by the way, I do want us to know that we're going to be focusing on the mindset and the nutrition intentional needs today. So I did all of those things when I was 14 and throughout my life. I had my first child when I was 34 and my second child at 36. And so I did all of these different things until I had children. And then even after that, for a little while, I did. But when my oldest son, he is on the autism spectrum, and he was diagnosed. He was actually what I would consider to be a little bit late in being diagnosed. He was diagnosed at 6 years old. And for years, I noticed that there was something a little bit different. It took a lot of different modalities to help him, and I didn't have an actual diagnosis up until he was 6, but we were still doing things to help him to succeed and be his best. But because of that, all of the time and the attention and the self-care that I was doing for myself, I kind of put it on the back burner. And that's why I think that what I share with people in this podcast is so important, focusing on those 4 intentional needs, which are our anchors. It is so important for our health, not just right now, but also in the future. A lot of us mamas, especially when our child is newly diagnosed, all of our attention and time goes into our kiddo and helping them succeed and getting them all the therapies that they need, which is so very important. I will never minimize that because that is so very important. And the success that he has now could possibly be because of some of the things that we did when he was younger. However, the truth of the matter is that by putting our own health and self-care on the back burner, eventually we'll come back, and it could come back with a vengeance. And all of a sudden, when we just started having little tiny issues and noticing little tiny things, it can get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger when it comes to symptomology and different issues that we can start to have in the future by not taking care of ourselves in the present. So I want to go into our top red flags. So the first red flag that I noticed for myself was fatigue. Now you may be wondering, why the background knowledge. The reason why is because I did not notice these red flags immediately. Why? Because I had already had a diagnosis of an autoimmune disorder. And because I had already had this, I didn't recognize these red flags. And I wanted to mention them to you because I feel like these red flags are very normal and natural red flags that a lot of times they're easy to miss. They're very, very easy to miss. And also I want to mention, I started noticing these red flags probably around the age of 42 or 43, somewhere around there. So the reason why it's important to notice that is because this episode is all about blood sugar, right? So I did not have an issue with high blood pressure, or high blood sugar rather, in the past at all, ever. Sometimes it would go a little bit low. I would have low blood sugar. And that's also important to realize because a lot of times when people have insulin imbalances when they are younger, even if it is a low blood sugar, they can in the future, if they do not pay attention and take care of that, have issues in the future with high blood sugar, especially in that age demographic of perimenopause, which happens on average here in the US anytime in like the mid to late 30s up and up until your late 40s, early 50s. Okay, so this is real. And even if you're not having difficulty in the perimenopause time period currently, you want to be aware of the age that you are and if that is typical, even if you do not have any symptoms currently. Because what I noticed is that the symptomology kind of slowly snuck up on me. And it wasn't until I started doing a little bit of research and there were certain podcasts that I was listening to that made me feel like, this is something I may need to pay attention to. One of those podcasts is Dr. Marisa Snyder's podcast, and I think it's called Essentially Yours. And it was formerly known, I think, as the Hormone CEO. It's an amazing podcast. She gives lots of really great information. And I'm going to go into that in just a few minutes. But that is the reason why I wanted to mention these red flags. Okay, so having that background knowledge, I had this autoimmune condition when I was younger, and I also want to mention that I was able to put this autoimmune condition into remission. Okay, I was able to put it into remission by daily self-care habits and by taking care of myself and managing my stress levels and all of that. And so it wasn't something that I was significantly dealing with. Okay, so then I want to fast forward to about age 40 to 43. I started having lots of fatigue. And to be quite honest, I kind of felt like it was probably because I had young children, which is true. And I mean, like I said, I had my oldest at 34 and my youngest at 36. So I felt like, it's because my kiddos are young. I mean, at that age, let's see, my kids were like 6 and 8 or something. And that is young, especially for a mama in her 40s. So that's like at 42. But I started noticing a lot of fatigue. Okay, so that's the number one first red flag for me. But I didn't notice it as a red flag because I thought it was just the autoimmune condition. So the second red flag, I'd have to say, was headaches, actually. I started having these headaches and I thought, this is strange, but I didn't really know what it was. And so I would just research headaches, But actually, that was not what was going on for me. I noticed these headaches, and later on, I realized it actually had to do with protein. So keep that in the back of your mind as we're going through this. The next thing, I noticed there were changes in my teeth. Okay, so this was a red flag for me. This is not uncommon, but it's not one that you usually hear about. Also, as a side note, I just keep in mind that these blood sugar or glucose fluctuations is not uncommon, especially at the age I was at, because that is a marker of perimenopause. However, even though that was, my age and I'm still in that age demographic, not a lot had changed, okay, as far as I didn't have a lot of symptoms, is what I mean. But I did have the glucose fluctuations, which I didn't recognize as glucose fluctuations. All right, another one that I thought was really interesting, like my teeth. So when I mean my teeth were changing, like I started having my gums started to get a little swollen. I had to really recognize what was going on there. And then the fourth one I'd say was hormone fluctuations, which I didn't realize. Um, I didn't realize what was going on immediately. I thought it could be something else. And then the fifth one was increased hunger and cravings. Now, I will say this much. It's increased hunger and cravings. I didn't increase hunger, but I did start having cravings, and I started craving more protein. Now, I am vegan, so I had to start looking for some different protein sources. But I thought this was really interesting too, because this is not something that I automatically realized, oh, maybe this has something to do with blood sugar. I did not at all. Now, I think actually I skipped number two, and number two was noticing how stress was affecting me. Okay, so I'm going to go over those top 5 red flags for myself. Okay, number 1 was fatigue, number 2 was stress, number 3 headaches, number 4 my teeth started to change, number 5, did I do that right? Was the hormone fluctuations. Yes, and then we had increased hunger and cravings. Yes, okay. So I may have miscounted, but that's okay. I'm going to go over it again a little bit later. Okay, so the reason why this is important. So when I say like the first one, fatigue, that means I was tired when I first woke up. Now, I say that this is specifically for autism moms because for me, I had to put a lot of my self-care strategies on the back burner. I'm a single mom, but I'm a divorced single mom. So I didn't initially notice how the fatigue was affecting me. I thought could be the autoimmune. I thought maybe because of the stress of divorce, all of those kinds of things. And I didn't realize that it could be blood sugar as well. Headaches in the past, because of the autoimmune condition that I was diagnosed with, I had lots of headaches. And with these particular kinds of headaches, I thought it was just that. And then I started really researching about health and things that I could do. Because one of the podcasts I listened to, as I said, it was Dr. Marisa Snyder, and she was mentioning lots of things to do with health, with self-care. And she also would talk about blood sugar. And I remember a lot of the things she was mentioning, but I did not feel like I had access to it. As an autism mom, as a single autism mom, one of the things that she was recommending is making sure that you're going outside every day, even just a few minutes. And I remember that was a struggle for me because my child would elope. He would often elope in all the random places and all just in the house, outside, stores, parks, everything. And we had in-home ABA therapy specifically for elopement for quite some time. And I remember feeling like, oh, there's so many things she's recommending. And a lot of these things were free options, but I just didn't see it as something that was accessible to myself. And I'm going to get back to that. Just give me a minute. So going back to the teeth, I had to pay attention and see what's going on with my teeth. Have I changed anything? And all of these little pieces started to add up. Hormonal fluctuations, same thing. And of course, if you are seeing a holistic practitioner, a homeopathic doctor, a naturopathic doctor, these are things that of course you would want to bring up to them and let them know what's going on, whoever you are seeking your medical advice from or your health coach, and letting them know what's going on and seeing what they are recommending to you. Okay. So now I'm going to tell you how I was able to help with those things. So as through my research, I was able to discover that the increased hunger, cravings, increased hunger and then also cravings. And sometimes that can also be increased thirst for some people, when it's related to glucose fluctuations, glucose spikes specifically of their blood sugar. One of the things that I was craving, as I mentioned, was protein. And after I researched that, I realized that's something that actually helps to balance the blood sugar. Now, this information is not for someone who has diabetes. Yes, you can use this information, but you probably are already working alongside a practitioner. And so, this is information for people that traditionally have had balanced blood sugar and then all of a sudden are starting to have these fluctuations. And a lot of times it is related to perimenopause because of the age of the demographic. And I know those that often, listen to my podcast can relate to a lot of the things that I am referring to. Okay, so I started increasing protein. So if you are a meat eater, that would be grass-fed beef, pasture-raised chickens or eggs, lamb. Making sure everything is really clean though if you are a meat eater. Also wild-caught fish like salmon. Make sure you're not doing farm-raised. And make sure you're not doing traditional meat that's working with traditional practices here in America, meaning like if it's not organic, if it's not grass-fed, you don't want to have that in your body because actually it's not healthy for you and your body recognizes that it is different. Okay, so you want to make sure if you are a meat eater, increasing that protein with grass-fed, pasture-raised, organic meat and wild-caught fish, if that is something you are currently consuming. For myself, another thing that I would do, because I am not a meat eater, I would have increased protein through nuts and seeds. I would increase protein through protein shakes and using an organic yellow pea protein and a mixture of that protein, cranberry protein, brown rice protein, if you can have that. There's lots of different protein powders out there. You want to just look for one that's really, really clean and that has a focus on not raising your blood sugar. And if you are needing more information about that, please check out my website because on my online health shop, I have protein powders on there. That is an essential meal that has a complete amino acid profile, so that has a complete protein for you. Okay, so that was one of the things I had to do. I also had to make sure that I would have beans and lentils, legumes. I would have all of these, but for me, my body in the past would have difficulty digesting these. So what I had to do was make sure that I had soaked them properly. Okay, so that's another thing. If you're going to consume legumes, you need to make sure that they have been soaked properly and you are, meaning like they have been soaked for, I think it's 24 to 48 hours. If possible, allow them to sprout as well. I like to have sprouted red lentils, sprouted chickpeas, sprouted mung beans. And I would take those and make them into vegan eggs or soups or stews. Also, like with chickpeas, I would make them into falafels. I would make them into breads, like a savory waffle as well. There's so many different options. So you could have them for breakfast or lunch or dinner, depending on what your meal plan is. The great thing about that is you can meal prep those kinds of things and have them when you are breaking your fast, meaning like breakfast. So whenever that is. I also practice intermittent fasting, and that helps a lot, especially for me when it comes to helping me to balance my blood sugar. So I guess there's several different things that I did, but just take what you need and just leave the rest. And then also think of starting with one at a time. That's really, really helpful. Going back to the podcast that I would listen to with Dr. Marisa Snyder, I would look at those different things that she was suggesting, and I just started taking bits at a time to bring my health back. Because at this time, I was really struggling with my health, and especially after COVID and during COVID, just because I, was in the home most of the time. But to be quite honest, as an autism mom, I spent most of my time at home anyway. But it was different with, deliveries, and not always how it had been before. It was a little bit different. So I started to focus on a few different things. Okay, so we talked about my red flags. Now let's talk about what to do. Okay, what can you do when you start to seeing yourself, oh, I'm starting to have more fatigue? And maybe because you're a tired autism mom, yes, but it also could be that you are having some blood sugar fluctuations. And as I said before, it is perfectly fine to test, okay? It is perfectly fine to go to your doctor or practitioner and say, this is what I am feeling. I would like to have my blood sugar tested. And there's all kind of different tests to help with that. So you can go to them and start talking to them. But these are some of the things that I started out doing. Number one, vitamins and supplements, making sure that I am getting enough B vitamins, I'm getting enough vitamin C, and going back to B vitamins, making sure that they are methylated. That is really important because 50% of the population, I believe it's over 50% of the population, their body isn't able to digest and receive that nutrient of synthetic vitamin B. Okay, so like folic acid is a synthetic form of folate. It's a B vitamin, but the folate is what comes from food. And when you are not able to you were only able to get some of these synthetic versions, your body isn't able to use them as well for a lot of people. So you want the methylated vitamins, and you actually want to make sure that instead of getting the folic acid, you're getting the folate as well as the B12, and you want to have, all of those beautiful vitamins that are in a form that your body is able to receive and digest and absorb and to be able to use. Okay, so that's really, really important. So I started taking vitamin B, and it's a drink, and I also have it on my online health shop, and it's like a fizzy drink. It is delicious. It only has like 1 gram of sugar, so it's really low in sugar, and it helps with energy and lots of B vitamins in it, and it all is also methylated. So that's one item. Another thing, ashwagandha. I think it's really important to help your body do what it needs to do. And sometimes we do need to support ourselves with a lot of different things, and ashwagandha is one of those herbs that is really, really helpful. It's really popular nowadays, but I do think it's important to pay attention to where it's being sourced and the how it's being sourced and the brand that you're using. So that's also another powder, and I started using a lot more of that. So ashwagandha, B vitamins, vitamin C. I have a product that I started using that supports the skin and the health, and it has hyaluronic acid and vitamin C, and that is very, very powerful. Multivitamins also very, very powerful. So having a whole form vitamin, like food-based vitamins, is another thing that I did and do. So yes, the next thing, what did we talk about? We talked about I increased protein. We talked about the vitamins and supplements I started having. That is just, so important. The next thing was exercise. Now, going back to that podcast that I mentioned before, Dr. Marisa Snyder, one of the things she talked about is making sure you're able to get outside. As I said before, that was something I really wanted to do, but I didn't feel like it was available to me at the time. In time, it did become available to me, and when that was possible, I most assuredly took it every opportunity. I love being outside. But in the meantime, I got one of the little vitamin D machines that you put the light on you, and it helps to create more vitamin D for your body, because vitamin D is a hormone. So that was something I started to do. Another thing I started to do, when possible, if I could go outside and get a little bit of grounding in, I really enjoyed that. That started to help me when I was able to do it consistently as well. And then also, I purchased a little rebounder, and I started doing that. I also started um, lifting heavy weights. There's a lot of research out there right now about lifting heavy weights for women, helping them in this age demographic, helping them with balancing their blood sugar. And I attest that it is true. It has helped me. Of course, do your own research. And then I started doing Pilates. That also helped me, but I was already doing Pilates. I'd have to say it was probably more of the heavy weights that I started to really see a lot of forward motion. Another thing with the heavy weights, it helped me to keep my weight balanced. During the time of COVID, just because of stress, I had put on weight that I did not want, and I was able to release all of the weight that I did not want in a really timely manner. Again, everybody is different, but do your own research. These are things that has been, researched and studied that really do help. And so those are a couple of things that have really helped me. Also, going to a holistic dentist. I would prefer to go to a holistic one because they are minimizing the type of chemicals that they are using in their practice. So, keeping an eye on your teeth and your gum health, using natural remedies. For me, I use oil pulling. I also do salt rinses. I take sea salt, a really high quality sea salt, like I think real salt by Redmond is one, Himalayan sea salt, kosher sea salt. There's so many different kinds, but a really high quality sea salt, and then rinsing with that after brushing my teeth. And then I also make my own mouthwash. I make my own toothpaste because I did not want the chemicals of, the toothpaste in my body and in my mind. I was in my body and in my mouth, or in my mind, but in my mouth, because I really wanted to minimize the chemicals and the different toxins that can be in your household and personal care products. So I really wanted to make sure, if I did not buy it from my own online health shop, that I was making these products so that I knew what was going in it and it was good for my body. Okay, so, and then also, if you have access to go to a holistic practitioner, they can also help you with that. A lot of naturopathic doctors and homeopathic doctors nowadays will do a lot of telehealth. So it is more available for a lot of us autism moms as well. So these are some of the things that I notice in my body, especially around the age of 42, 43. And then I just want to give you an update on how it's going. Number one, I had put on, like I said, a little bit of weight during COVID. I released all of that weight. I don't struggle with that fatigue like I used to. I realized that the issues with the headaches and the cravings was helped by just increasing my protein. Of course, making sure I'm getting enough water, taking care of my teeth, managing those hormone fluctuations. I take a progesterone cream that I will rub on my body 2 weeks of the month, and that helps with that. I also have a Vitex oil that I made as well. And so there are different things that you can find. And of course, your health practitioner will make recommendations as well. As a health coach, I do recommend a progesterone cream, but making sure that this progesterone cream is very high quality. I think that is the most important thing. So for me, I currently still do intermittent fasting. As I said, I'm 48 now, so this journey has been going on for the last 6 years. I do intermittent fasting, and that has helped so very much. All of these things I'm currently still doing, and I have found significant improvement in my health. So thank you so much for listening, and I do hope that you are able to leave a beautiful review and make recommendations to your family and friends. Other autism moms need to hear this information, because so many times we're so focused on our child that we forget to realize that we need to practice these self-care improvements as well, especially when we are in a particular age demographic. So it's really, really important. So I look forward to sharing with you next time. Have a beautiful day, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you for listening to my mom's podcast.
Don't forget to follow and leave a review. It is so important. The reason why is because that's really the only way that other autism moms know of this podcast and are able to receive from this amazing information. So thank you so much. Don't forget to like and leave a review and share with all your friends and download. Bye.
Thank you so very much for listening in. If you have learned something new today or have been blessed by this show in any way, please share with a friend. And don't forget to head over to iTunes and leave a 5-star review. And feel free to take a screenshot and tag me on Instagram, and I will tag you back. Thank you, and be well.